All right, you guys, this one is a doozy. So usually these videos are about 10 minutes long, but this is a 20-minute long video. So grab a cup of coffee, get comfy, and let's learn about some body language. So what's incredible and what I love about filming these sessions is watching the progress and watching both you and Nemo grow as we go over everything. So this was our second session. We did the drills with having Liz and my other coworker Nephi come in. So here, I'm slowing it down a little bit so you could see his body language. So I had asked Liz to come in, and he's doing that consideration moment. We talked about he doesn't know what decision he's going to make right now. These are the moments where we got to kind of help him out. So you can see he's looking at somebody for guidance. So he checked in at me a little bit. So as I start to move around, he's like, okay. She steps out, and I told her to knock and enter. So now the body language, I had taken back a little bit of guidance. So now where he would usually be most likely confrontational a little bit, his brain is like, that's been taken away from me. So what do I do? He doesn't know what to do. So we're seeing that kind of closed in situation. So through the leash, I'm letting him know, come this way, come that way. When he's in this insecure state, he doesn't like to be petted and touched, especially by me or someone else other than you, because he just doesn't understand it. He doesn't have that trust. So I just do his basics of his hand target, and we stay in that little area. I move him back and forth there, and as you can see, Liz is panning back and forth through the back of the training area. So we are desensitizing in this moment. He's opening up a little bit through his body language, not as tense as he was just a minute ago. So I run the drill going across the room, or Liz going across the room now, and I take him out kind of almost suspended in space from you. You could see, again, it's a confusion. He has this like, okay, I don't really know what to do. It's this shutdown. So we're pairing with him a lot of desensitizing and basic obedience, okay? So through the videos, you'll kind of see, I love how excited you get. I can see you're getting very excited. You'll see him kind of start to understand. Like right now, we're early on, he doesn't understand. So in comes Nephi. And I explain to you what I'm about to do, and we just do that same drill again. So here, I stop this one because there's two things that are happening. He's ready to be confrontational if he needs to, but he's also sniffing. He's kind of investigating, and then he checks out on his own. And that's one where if it were just me and him, I'd be like, hey, good job, dude. And I should have rewarded him there, but I was probably explaining in that moment. But he just kind of disengages, becomes a little aloof. And again, you'll see he's looking. I give him a verbal cue, and he responds. So when I'm giving that coaching on the leash where we want to use our verbal cues and things like that, I had just run those drills back and forth with him. I tried to instill like here, this way with him, and good. So that way, if he was ever in that state of stress like he just was, I could check him out verbally. The leash is there for management overall. We don't want the leash to be a main source of control or communication. We want it to help teach, but we don't want it to be necessary in the long term. It may be, some dogs it may be, but our mission is to be able to build as much of a connection and understanding between us and the dog so that we don't lose control even without the leash. And again, we're in the very early stages, but that's why I'm very big on the leash handling, and we help kind of check him out of things when we need to, but we want to use our verbal cues overall when we can. So we're going to run that same drill. I've handed the leash back to you. And this is where I want you to observe the leash handling skills and kind of why I made that knot on the leash and those little moments where it's like we climb up the leash and we let out the leash a little too much. So here you climb up on the leash, I let you know someone's going to come in, and then you drop the leash You climb up on it again, and which is fine, but because like right there, there's some distance with him, it just gets confusing overall. And I think it's part of a little bit of stressed energy that you guys are kind of giving each other there. So see people come in, he's kind of braced there, not as bad as originally. So it's good. And he's doing pretty good here. And I've had them kind of stationary, and he's following, he's guiding, it's doing good. And then I have someone move. So yeah, perfect. Right there, I think you did good. He was looking, you gave him just a slight little like, hey, and we can see that bracing he does. So that's where I just went down and kind of checked him out of it. And just let him kind of have a little open up moment and decompress for just a second. Then we move back into it. I just want you to kind of observe how much the leash has dropped and picked up. So I've asked somebody to move again in the room, and obviously with the voiceover, we cannot hear what is being said to him, but I think at this point you're giving him a lot of like high-pitched kind of communication. So if you can see the leash and this like up and out and picking up and you know, there was also voice inflection coming at him. And so he kind of started to tense up. So I was like, all right, let's just kind of grab one point on the leash and try to move. And what I can see from the playback is he's overwhelmed, and he was climbing up into that overwhelmed point in the session. And then I grabbed the leash and tried to move him right back into the same thing. And we should have just let him decompress for a second. So I kind of took that moment to just be like, hey, it's okay. We're here, dude. Use my hand target and just kind of like ease him back into it. So, and Nemo, we know, doesn't have a very long run time. I think we're about a half hour in to the session at this point, and he's probably real tired, real brain fried. But we start to have people moving. There's people coming into the lobby. He's got a lot going on, and this is all really good for him and his brain and working through, you know, the distress that he feels. And so this is perfect. We're just kind of moving him back and forth. We're working with motion to help his brain kind of check out of getting too overwhelmed. So again, those old habits kind of dying hard. A lot of stuff with the leash going on there. So you'll see yourself get really, really good at it in our last segment of the video. So here's where we were working with the doorway, kind of that barrier when he has that like stone wall moment where he's like, I can't do it. I don't know how to do it. And then we get him out, we do a little jackpot and continue on. So here's a really important body language switch up. So from the beginning, that closed in, the tail's completely down. Here is that primal kind of look. So he is 180 when it comes to people, and then to dogs. He's like, with people, he's like, I don't know. With dogs, he's like, what's up? Let's go. And it just is something his brain snaps into. So it's a good thing to note here. So that body language I kind of highlighted was, he was puffed up, his tail was like up and curled, and he was just like, yo, let's go. I see you puppies in the window. And the puppies are no threat, Nemo, but we chat a little bit more about what's going on. And then this is in a few segments when I bring my dog out. So we're talking about here when a dog barks at him is when he gets real crazy. So that's a product of when he's hearing those dogs kind of bark at us through the window and he's getting puffed up. But again, it's a similar drill. We just keep him moving. Like what we do with our training sessions with him is like the foundation of every good dog. It's like, will they just follow us as a guide? Or are they making decisions on their own impulsively? So that can transfer to so many situations and so many different mindsets of the dog. So we did it with fear, and now we're doing it with a little bit of just defensiveness. So here's another moment where I just want to highlight kind of the interaction between you guys. I had told you I was going to bring my dog out. I started to bring her out, and there was that fussing on the leash, and he was just like, yeah, get this thing out of my way so I can tell this dog what's up. And there was a lot of trying to negotiate with him in that moment, like, hey, like, look over here, I'm over here. And he was just honed in on the dog. And I kind of took the leash and I was just like, we're moving, we're going. And this is another part of what I explained. When he's in this state, a little more primal, he can take a little more pressure than when we're doing our work of going in and out of the doorway and he does his gridlock stopping. And we have to kind of get low and coax him through a situation. This is different. This is that, like, all right, I see it too, but we're not going to engage with it. We're not going to talk back to it. We're going to move forward and be polite and let that dog just lay down and chill. And I like to use my dog because, well, she does well, and she's a small dog. So I think it really helps drive home the severity of when we have a large dog that has questionable intentions, that the dog does not know what they're even going to do when they get there, but there is some sort of intent and there is some sort of drive that is fueling them. There's an urgency when it comes to a small dog or a child to check them out of it. So like here you'll see me give him a cue and then I give him a correction. And what was happening there is he had stopped to sniff, but then he started to puff and lean over her. So I checked him out of that mindset. And you'll see he sat on his own. When he came up over towards us, he sat on his own. So now he avoids after I gave him that correction there. So I hand the leash back and he shuts down, but you give him some pressure. It's excellent. He started moving again. And he's doing great. I think there was a lot of the leash dropping and up and that. And so that was when I pulled it. I gave you that spot on the leash and it does have some slack, but it's just stationary because all that fidgeting is, again, a product of stress. And we want to kind of limit that because he's already kind of a stressed dog. And that moment right there is like that. When he's unsure, I don't know what to do, we get low. And you can see the comparison of the two types of body language and the moments that I shift between the action of, hey, we're moving, and hey, I got you, man. So I just hope you can see that through the video, like the way the tail is standing, the way he's standing, and then it's very clear as to what method to apply in that moment. So here, just observing again the interaction between you guys is where I had started to move my dog, and you could see your hand kind of giving him a lot of like fuss and things like that. So I think what I was talking about here is just, let your arm fall by your side as best you can. Only give him that moment when it's needed. And this is where I really started to see you process things and shine. And you'll start to see it from here through the rest of the video. Like that, your movement right there, so good. And you're just looking forward, you're moving. I start moving the dog. And you can see you still want to give some feedback. Your arm kind of does this involuntary flinching at this point. And what I would do is just move, like just keep moving through it. And I told you that a couple times. And like he's still moving forward with you. He's looking at the dog, which is okay. If he were to stop, we could check him. But like this is good, and you did good there. You were just like, hey, like let's go. And but you could see your arm kind of wanting to do its own thing. So I understand it is again like learning to drive, and you're worried about which direction the car's going to go in, and so it's kind of overthinking, and it's just a new skill to learn. So anyway, moving on, this is Friday. This was just the other day. Yesterday? What is today? Anyway, we're working on, there was that screaming puppy. So the puppy started going off outside. I opened the door. Prior, it was a lot for him, and that puppy was quite a lot. So I closed the door to kind of muffle the sound, and we did that basic, exercise. And I would suggest, before you exit your house on any given day, do this basic exercise with him. This, like, hey, we're going up, we're going back, we're going up, we're going back. And this was an exercise where this is the second half of that, where the puppy had left. He was still preoccupied and didn't want to go near the door. So I was adjusting the pressure on the gentle leader. And I was like, hey, I know it's a little uncomfortable, but you got to move with me through this, and it's going to be okay. And just kind of repeating that over and over again until he was like, oh, okay, I get it. And so just jackpotting him when he got through that really tough part. So again, with him kind of going back to the beginning, it's we're on one end desensitizing him to the things that cause major barriers for him, and that gridlock moment for him. We just want to desensitize him, get him exposed to things in a safe manner as best we can, and show him that it's like, hey, it's all right. We can still move. We can still work on this together. But also a basic obedience standpoint of, when I tell you to move, we got to move. And just helping him with the cues there. So every session, I think we're going to be doing just a little desensitize exercise for him, whether that be desensitizing him to a scary sound or a different person or, something going on in the lobby, which is really hard for him. I think we'll do a lot of work with the lobby as best we can, because you get, like, in the training area, we have a lot of control, and the lobby we don't have as much control. And what we know with Nemo is anytime we add a layer into our training, he resets to kind of a shutdown. He resets to something we got to desensitize him to. So I think overall it's gonna be a lot of that, and we're still early on in this training, so who knows the progress he'll make in 2 weeks. But I just I want to work a little bit with things that are a little bit out of our control, because that's more real life. But anyway, so this is where outside of El Pollo Loco, and here's where I really start to see you and like him click on just like the movement and the flow, and you really gaining control over that motor skill of the reflex of you wanting to look at him when you turn. And you'll like watch when you walk with him in this next part, your arm wants to do check-ins. Like you really want to have that security of like, he's right here, and giving him feedback. And you could see how tense it is at times. And even there, I had told you I was going to create a diversion, and you started to flinch it a little bit. So I think we had another little pep talk in between there. I was spraying the Stop That spray, and you were just like, hey, let's go. And so here's where you guys really just like synced in. You just give him those little checks like, no, we're not going to sniff the chicken. You take a turn, and a little bit of checking there, but not as bad as before. And I think I stopped you to let you know that. And I know it must be frustrating where I'm like, trying to reassess these things. But again, like the footage, you'll see now, and again, that want to do it, but you composed, and you just moved, and just look at him walking, like him just flowing. And even still a little bit there, but that's okay. And he's just like more natural, more just like he's just walking like a dog. And that's a really, really beautiful thing. And you are also just walking. Like, I know you're stressed, and you're like, oh my God, what's he doing? What's he looking like? And if you're ever curious, you can just like set your phone down on a sidewalk or something like this with the film on. And what I had told you there is let the leash out, hold the end of the leash, because he was flowing really nicely. So it's an exercise that I like to do at first. Yeah, we want to make sure we have control over the dog when we need it. And we hold the leash a little tighter, a little closer. But once we get to this point with him, and he did well, I told you to let him sniff. Once we get to that point with him where prior to letting the leash out, he's cruising, he's walking, he's just being a regular dog, then we try the exercise of just holding the handle of the leash, just holding the little end of it, and doing that exercise where almost the leash is non-existent. So, again, I know it was a long one, and I'm sorry if there were moments where I just kind of seemed to be rambling. I blow through these videos on the weekend. I have 11 to do today, so I've been talking a lot and watching a lot of this stuff. But I really am such an advocate for Nemo right now, and he's a dog that I think there's dogs like him, and people don't understand them and what they really need, and they just want him to be, or they just want dogs like him to be a regular dog, but we got to take some slow steps to get there, and I'm just glad you guys are working on it, and I hope this stuff is helpful. There was a few points where the GoPro kind of cut out, and I got to figure that out, and then our session that we did outside originally, I don't know if we filmed that session or not, but I couldn't find that footage, and this video is already long enough. But I hope you guys are having a wonderful day wherever you're at, and hope you're enjoying the sunshine. And I will, if you have any questions too, I'm always down to go back, review the video with you, and look at points and talk about it. It's interesting to me, so I'm always happy to do that. If you have any questions at all on it, you know how to reach me, and I will talk to you soon.